there, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of StarCast Podcast for Wellness Professionals. Today, we are joined by someone I've been trying to get on the podcast for I don't know how many months. It's been a while, but we're lucky to have him today. As it's the holiday weekend in the U.S., he took some time out of his busy schedule to join us. So I'm happy to welcome Michael Newcombe, Vice President of Wellness globally for Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
And thank you for the invitation. You're right. We've been trying to get it on calendar for a while, but you cornered me in Nanjing, China recently. And
That's right.
There was no escape.
That's right. If you're in the same room with me, forget about it. So thank you again for graciously giving us your time this morning. I just think that the Four Seasons has a compelling story to tell in terms of wellness and being a trendsetter in how wellness integrates with the hospitality experience. So we'll get to that. But first, Michael, I think listeners would be interested in hearing a little bit about your personal story. You've been a hotelier, it looks like most of your life. How was that for you leaving uni, your plan for your career? How did that evolve for you?
That's a great question and seems to get asked of me, understandably. But to really know the answer, I had to go back to my childhood. I'm someone who struggled with asthma as a kid. And the foundation of my emergence out of that difficult illness was sport and activity. Initially, breathing exercises, but I was hospitalized a couple of times as a kid through asthma, allergic asthma to or dust or so. When you have some fragile memories like that and you escape that chapter through sport, it really built a foundation of me to understand how through a mindset and an expression and a determination, you can achieve anything. At some point when I got to 12 and my asthma was under control and behind me, I was playing for every sports team I could. But I went to my mother one day and it was this random. And I said, I'm going to run one of the finest hotels in the world. Don't worry about me. And she chuckled in a motherly way. So where did that come from? And I think it came from a travel with my father. It was an executive in an automobile company. And I remember as a child enjoying not just the luxury of hotels we stayed in. It wasn't about that. It was about the fact the hotel never went to sleep. And I think I've began to understand, and forgive me for a sort of deeper psychological connection, my asthma was bad at nights. And I remember thinking, these hotels never go to sleep. There's something that's going on all day. If I can't sleep or I can't settle down at night, wouldn't the hotel business be a wonderful stage for me that appeared safe to me as a kid? And I only realized that in later life. So it's funny how these childhood, sometimes difficult situations actually morph into opportunity. And I knew there was some connection I had, and that extended into business school. I did a summer program in Lausanne in hotel school for a year, and then really started my career with a mindset of luxury hotels, but had that wellness thing in the background.
How old were you when you had that feeling about the hotel?
I remember distinctly a meal at the Cumberland Hotel in London with my father and family. He was working, but he brought the family down for the weekend. And I just remember the meal. I remember the feeling of energy in a hotel, the lights, the concierge, an interaction with the concierge to say, hey, I'll be here in the morning, the night concierge. I said, isn't that amazing? People work overnight. And I was from a relatively small town in England where the post office closed at 5. And there was one store that closed at 5:30. And this was a energy that was tangible for me. It was an excitement, to some degree, perhaps a safety that it was a 24/7 business, but it was a deep connection. And I had no doubt that's what I wanted to do.
What we expose our children to does have a lasting effect somehow, whether it's immediate or later, right?
It appeared to be in my case, but yeah, it is always something in there that's either active learning for them or passive learning. And you never quite know, but you're absolutely right. That's the responsibility we have as parents, of course.
Mhm. So you went right into being a hotelier after schooling.
Yes, I took on all experiences. I remember my first role with a Hilton management training program was overnights, actually. And it's funny how we go back to that pattern of nights. I had no fear of working at nights. I quite enjoyed the change to the routine. And I was a night porter as part of the management training program. I then did communications, the PBX, as they called it at the time, front desk overnight, and then built up the modules, breakfast chef, and then took on another role in the UK. And then there was the global repositioning of the hospitality industry with the first Gulf War in the early 90s, which put everyone into a different track. But it put me on an exciting track because it placed me in Paris at Disneyland Paris as a young assistant manager, opening the resorts. And I went from small provincial hotels in UK to really trying to get the resort open, understanding the hotel's part in the Disney web. I loved my time at Disney. It was organized. It was a difficult opening for various other reasons. But when you open 5,000 rooms as part of a project team in multiple hotels, it was ingrained in me. A little bit of survival on opening day. I remember that, but
Sure. Wow. What an experience.
it was an experience, and I'm grateful to Disney for that.
You're not working in a brand that has 5,000 room hotels anymore.
No, actually, they say be good at what you do and you ultimately get recognized. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but my boss at Disney had left Four Seasons to do an MBA. And she subsequently, after 3 or 4 years at Disney together, left to rejoin Four Seasons. And I was close to her. I enjoyed her leadership style. And I whimsically said, hey, Four Seasons is the only brand that I would leave Disney for. And she called me 6 months later to advise of an opening. And that was in 1995 in London. And I interviewed and I got my foot in the door and haven't looked back since.
So you're coming up on 30 years with Four Seasons.
That's right, 30 years this year. And my goal at the time when I joined was to successfully do a 2 to 3 year period. That's about as far as I could see in my 20s. I remember thinking, hold it down, it's tough, but
Mhm.
let's see what the next chapter is. Disney was 3 years and I was going to do about the same in Four Seasons. And well, something happened. I'm still here.
And why? What made you stay? Like, what was different at Four Seasons?
There's been many interactions, a lot of brands I'd worked with briefly during management training, good brands, wholesome brands, but they used to talk about being supportive to employees. And they were to a certain degree. And Disney certainly was. But Four Seasons carried it through and meant it. And I've gone on record before in certain talks I've given and referenced Isidore Sharp. For me, he's the founder, but he's more than that for Four Seasons. His involvement when I joined was almost like a father figure to many young leaders. And I'll tell you one story. I was going to leave the brand when I was in Toronto. I was transferred there as a young manager from London. I was loving my time in London socially. I was sailing at weekends, but I wanted to do the right thing. And the brand said, hey, if you want to build out with us, you've got to come to our property in Toronto. And I wasn't reluctantly going, but certainly I landed in October and something like 97 and it was snowing deeply. And I remember going to the concierge on my team. I said, hey, when's the snow stop? And she looked at me and said, April,
Yeah.
May. I had a call during that time of uncertainty. I'd been there 6 months and an agent called me with a really prestigious job back in London. And I was tempted. I interviewed. The same time, before I left for Toronto, I bumped into Mr. Sharp in the lobby at Four Seasons London. My GM at the time said, hey, Michael is going to Toronto. And he thanked me and said, it's guys like you that we need in the brand. We need you to be mobile and we really appreciate it. And I'll come and see you when you're in Toronto. Of course, I shook his hand. I appreciated it. And I remember turning away. I said, I don't think that's going to happen. But around that period, fast forward in Toronto of uncertainty, one of my front desk agents stepped into the office and said, Mr. Sharp is here to see you. I said, what? He said, he wants to come round and see you in your office. And he came in, shut the door. And I don't know how he was able to read me, but he articulated exactly what I was feeling. As I bet you're feeling like this, but you've got to go through it. You've got to get to the year mark. And I hadn't communicated how I was feeling. He just knew. And that gesture of following up on a commitment you've made, more importantly, is something that stayed with me and it got me through that difficult part. And, it's these things that leaders do at Four Seasons. They're deeply motivated by commitment. And we've been led by someone and created by someone who always executes on those comments. And it's inspired a series of actions by GMs to that degree. And he created me in that mold. And it's a successful management principle of care. And he carried it through, and I've been duty bound for my career to be the same. And it's part of who I am. But there's a good chapter that could have gone either way, a fork in the road. But someone's behavior resonated with me.
That's a wonderful story. And it's a testament to the power of good leadership on the people that you're leading, setting that example but listening to the people and not just what the company needs. So good on him. So you toughed it out in Toronto and you had several other postings, I'd imagine. When did you arrive at Beverly Hills, which is when I think I met you? When did you arrive at that Four Seasons?
Yeah, we can fast track through various appointments in Sydney. And the irony for people listening as well is that I went from that feeling of uncertainty in Toronto to really embracing the city and loving the city. And, you can't look at your golf clubs and then worry about living somewhere. You have to replace your golf clubs for skis. You have to adapt to where you move to. And that's been as Four Seasons have moved me around, I've kept some core principles of what I love to do, but you have to adapt to the circumstance. And I was new to it. I then went to Sydney. I then went to Dublin. I was a young general manager opening the Four Seasons Hampshire. If you don't mind, I'll tell that as an important chapter. First GM.
To hear it.
A young man in the industry leading a team to open this country house hotel. And we had a big spa, 2002, Knowledge on Spa Limited. But right next door to us, another strong influence on my wellness and spa career was Sue Harmsworth, the founder of Spa. The company headquarters were 5 miles away. We took them on as a consultant, but she took me on as a really a mentor-mentee relationship in life and certainly in wellness. And I give Sue so much credit for the learnings there. And I left Four Seasons Hampshire being inspired by spa and wellness, and actually recognizing that they're underdogs in many of the hotels who are built on food and beverage and room, and spa has to muscle its way in between those founding pillars of rooms, meetings, and food and beverage. And that's been my role since then. I moved to Dallas to run a very big sports resort with the PGA Golf, which was a great learning on golf and tennis. I then moved to Westlake, where I ran the hotel and the California Health and Longevity Institute, our only medical.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful facility.
Yeah, wonderful. And then I moved to Beverly Hills, where I met you first in 2016. And by that time, I was head of the company's task force in the Americas for wellness. And in 2018, I was head of the company's global task force while still doing the general manager of Four Seasons Beverly Hills. So I always joke I had a day job, which I loved. And then this passion was burning inside me to do more in wellness. And the paths met in Beverly Hills. I was able to do a wellness floor with the team and to really push out some new concepts until 2022, where the brand offered me the opportunity to dedicate myself to this emerging passion, but I've been chairing the company committee by that time globally for 5 or 6 years. So it wasn't a shock for many people.
So I remember when you introduced those rooms in Beverly Hills and it was so cutting edge. I mean, so what was your thought process there? Besides that you loved wellness, what made you do it from a financial perspective?
From a financial perspective, every hotel obviously has a key count and you have premium rooms depending on view, and you have high floor, low floor suites, and you have this inventory to manage. The wellness floor in this particular hotel was on the fourth floor. And in that floor, when you come out of the elevator, you have the spa, pool, and fitness on half the floor. And the other half of the floor, you have about 16 guest rooms. And the vision was to integrate a single purpose onto that floor that they weren't of the highest point in the hotel, which is a 16 floor hotel. So they had a garden view, great view. But I thought by doing a single mission, by purposing them all together, finding the right partnership that we did at the time with Delos, yeah, we had great investor support. It was a really exciting journey and an incredible learning, actually, an incredible learning for me on the do's and some of the opportunities perhaps not to do.
So the wellness rooms that you did at Four Seasons Beverly Hills, I recall them having an exercise bike and a yoga mat, and I think some other tools. Can you elaborate on what was included and what the clients really asked for?
We went through the principles of wellness with purpose by establishing the purpose for the rooms, for the traveler who obviously wanted elevated wellness lifestyle amenities in the room. We took out the carpets and put a really beautiful wooden floor, which
Yeah.
had an allergen profile to really ensure that the rooms were the best they could be for air quality as well. And we put a HEPA air filter called Rabbit Air. We put a bright, smart mattress in and then had a nutrition based supplemental menu card. So if you wanted to eat a regular menu, you could, but also in room dining had additional about 4 appetizers and 4 wellness main courses. And then the mini bar was all wellness items. A massage chair we included in there. And some rooms had a Peloton bike and free weights, yoga mats, and a specially developed light in the bathroom with high profile. And that was developed by Delos, our partners, and then
Mhm.
a vitamin C infuser on the shower.
In the shower, right?
There was a blend of the Delos program for Stay Well, but then we added 5 or 6 custom Four Seasons features. So it was a great product.
What was the ADR premium on those rooms? Do you recall?
Yeah, we were targeting around 20%, and I can't really comment on the actual results, but that was the goal online. If you tried to book online, you would see a 20% premium for those rooms. And I would say they had to be experienced, and once they were experienced, it built the loyalty factor. The rooms were very sharp, very clean, and had a clear mission.
And do they still have them or have they iterated into something else?
I obviously, to go into the permanent role, left in 2022. They're still there. They're evolving their thinking and continuing to move forward. Very different times when we first did them in 2018. To your point,
Mm.
we were very far ahead and cutting edge. I think the question now that would get asked, if you do 16 wellness rooms, where does that leave others that you don't do? And the reality is to ensure that all the rooms carries the same programming. So it was a pilot program. It wasn't meant to scale. It was a learning for locally and for brands, but very successful.
So you spent several years, Michael, as you said, juggling a full-time GM job of a busy, high-profile hotel with running wellness for a global brand. I mean, how did you manage that?
Well, I'm really a brand strategist, flying fairly high level, trying to keep the pieces together and interface well with all our new developments and operations. But the real heroes of the spa and wellness structure for Four Seasons are our regional spa directors. We have 25 of those globally who look after their own spa within a Four Seasons and then have oversight of 4 regionally. So that ties all the pieces together under a regional structure. And then I manage the regional structure and then do in-person regional meetings each year, which obviously we weren't able to over COVID, but we have successfully done last year. So that's the communication structure and platform. And we have 120 operating spas at the moment and continuing to grow.
Trace according to the internet. I mean, that's quite a wide network.
I think it's not something we necessarily seek a title, but someone had said to me at a conference that we're the largest luxury operator of spas globally, luxury being the infinite word there. So, which is interesting with 16 Forbes 5-star spas and a host of AAA 5 Diamond or regional awards. It's an exciting portfolio.
For sure. And so you have a few hotels that don't have a spa, but not many. It sounds like almost every property has a dedicated spa space.
Yeah, our brand principle is that we believe we add value when we operate spas ourselves. But along the way, let's take San Francisco, for example, opened many years ago, and Miami Brickell, both of them have a relationship with a neighboring, in the same building, luxury fitness company. So it's one-off deals like that that make sense for the property when it was opened a number of years ago. But certainly moving forward, the vision and actuality is that we operate our own spas, and in fact are really focused on evolving our mission and doing as much as we can in the space.
In 2022, you were given the opportunity to shepherd the spas and the wellness program without being a hotel GM. Did you feel like you didn't have enough to do at first? That must have been quite something, that transition.
That's an interesting question. When you transition from a busy operation into corporate office, you feel the first month that you're dialing out before people have found you. But once you become part of the process, you're involved in everything, quite rightly. So I don't remember it being quiet for long. I do remember an embark and induction and then doing my orientation meetings. And I felt before the transition, perhaps to my own standard, I was completing stuff 60, 65%. And I wanted to go deeper on certain projects, would give guidance, but I wanted to bake more thinking into each concept. And I think the dedicated role allows me to take it earlier on in the process from our development team and really steer projects in the right direction, following a certain recipe we have with spa consultants that are selected by brand to carry out the vision.
So you're at the top. You've got 25 regionals around the world, each shepherding their group. I mean, do you all get together once a year, more than that? Like, how do you decide what direction you'll take as a company when it comes to incorporating wellness?
There's 2 parts to the strategy. One, the operations piece, almost demand drives itself. You're reacting to feedback from the field. You're looking at the numbers. You're looking at certain performance criteria, either service feedback or financial markers and key performance indicators. And you're shaping your strategy to a certain degree on the fly. The goals are set each year in advance, and then you're maintaining and driving operational elements. And that could be by dynamic pricing or sustainability practices or whatever the goal is that you've set for the year, you maintain that. Outside of that, the longer term brand position is a slow cook, more of a braising, stewing longer term that involves multiple chefs to get the recipe right. And that is a work in progress for us. We maximize potential of each location globally in new projects and renovations through ensuring we have a bench of really qualified, best in market spa consultants who will work on projects locally and given feedback from our design services team and of course, myself and the regional spa director.
So, how long would you say it takes to develop the spa program in a new property? Like, I mean, I'm sure from the onset, the spa is considered in terms of the real estate of it, but how long does it take for the programming to come together?
I'm going to speak generically about the industry, about experiences with everyone that I know. So I'm going to talk about industry averages, not necessarily about Four Seasons process.
All right.
To bake a deal from the development teams in the hotel markets can take sort of 5 years to really get it from the initial site. It can also be done in 6 months, but it can be as long as 5 years. During that period, the architects will draw what we call an area summary and allocate space for restaurants or rooms or spa and wellness. And then the influence is how best to use that space effectively. That's when the concept comes into play. And I think that's the most important part of any project. In fact, not just spa and wellness in restaurant or even in hotel. What is the concept? Can you articulate the concept in two clear sentences about what you're trying to create? And how do you distill that concept across everything? Does it come out in a strong, integrated fashion? And so, concept, mission statement, vision statement, 3 years out. And then we will work that square footage to look at how we're best going to use it. What are the obligations under guest service? How big is the gym? Do we want to take members? What's our market locally? Are we in a city? Are we not? Are we isolated? Will there be any day spa business? That will then, once you've got concept, you've got the vision and the market, it will define how you allocate that square footage. 3 years from that initial concept to opening would be a good industry average in my mind.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Well, that puts you in the purpose really of like having to really look far ahead because trends change so much. So if you're 3 years out, you really have to be on top of it. I see that globally, Four Seasons has some fascinating wellness offerings. Can you speak a little bit, Michael, to which of those might be most popular and what you see coming down the road?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important. We talk about Four Seasons having 120 spas. Each of our hotels individually run. We have a core, strong template of standards and operating criterias, but we encourage, and I'm talking about spa and wellness, we encourage a sense of place. If, as an example, you're in New York and you have a spa adjacent to your building, and it is a certain skincare line, and you fly over to Tokyo and you have a similar experience, there's certain elements of that we want you to be confident in brand. We want you to be confident in service. We want you to know some of the portfolio of services that we offer, but we also want you to experience a sense of place because travel is an adventure. It's exploring. So my point in answering that question is that we determine a lot of the wellness offerings that you and I have talked about, the sacred nap in Bali, the meditation and wellness shallow, which is an incredible build in Costa Rica, the incredible immersive programming in and nutrition schools in Four Seasons Westlake Village. All of these are built under the overarching principles of purpose, mind, body, nutrition, and sleep. That's the architecture, but construction of them, the flavor, the scent is created locally. And I give credit to the spa directors and the local marketing teams for these concepts. As a trend, I think we are almost at a full circle. The tech spa offerings are phenomenal. In Orlando and Baltimore, we are partnering with an AI robotic massage table, which is evolved. It's revolutionary.
The escape table, right?
That's right.
Yes, they were on the podcast a month or so ago describing it, and I know that they were going into Four Seasons Orlando.
Yeah. Well, it's important you embrace technology. So my message is mixed. You say, what is trending? on one half, we're open to these pilots and we want to see where technology will lead us. And so the two pilots have gone live recently. So that's one half of my response. But the other half really is just about this recircling back to the power of authentic touch and the rituals. And when we concept an opening now, we look at our location and say, what is the influence on this location going back hundreds of years? And many of these exciting resort locations have strong wellness influences and connections to the land, and not just rich sense that we can infuse into rituals, but sound and an echo to the local community brings a purpose, a deeper purpose to the community and what we strive to do, our art. So this is what I see: sense of place, a balance of tech knowledge, but local authentic touch. And I use the Bali example. It could not be more steeped in journey there, with connections to a source that the traveler would probably not aspire to meet until it's put in front of them. And they go through this wonderful sacred nap hanging in a zero gravity position and really able to induce a sense of relaxation and sense of connection that we strive to put forward.
I think that's a great formula, right? I mean, because you have a brand standard globally and you want to attract the traveler, obviously, who's comfortable and knows what to expect. And yet, I think it is so important to have that sense of place and not have a sort of cookie cutter spa where everything is the same, because wellness is different everywhere. And that's more fun for the traveler, don't you think?
I think so. And in fact, I took a short break in Cabo at our property recently, partially working and got some time for some downtime. My passion is a spin class. I try and do a class most mornings, and I am really good at getting up and doing it. Sometimes the 6 a.m. Soul Cycle class in LA or Newport Beach, a local cycle class. But when I was there on vacation, I actually wanted to do things differently. And I recognize, as we've always referenced at Four Seasons, that well-being and wellness is a choice. What we strive to do is build out a menu, an a la carte menu of offerings that you can choose and interpret depending on what you strive to do. And it's an assumption that you want to just do the same things when you're on vacation as you do at home. And I learned from myself that that's not the case. I wanted to be different. I wanted to sit in the pool. I hadn't swam for ages. I wanted to do lengths. I enjoyed eating breakfast, yet at home I do intermittent fasting. So I found myself wanting to try new things to get myself out of that rather measured wellness routine I do. And that's why Four Seasons want to and believe that wellness is a choice. You opt in, you choose what you like, and it might well be a celebratory mimosa at breakfast or a glass of champagne at noon that you would not do at home. But travel is a celebration, and we want to make sure that you can be indulgent and follow a well-being lifestyle in harmony at all of our resorts and hotels.
I 100% agree. We can't say with certainty what every traveler will want. And you've got business travelers who, when I'm traveling for business, I do want to maintain my routines of exercise and fitness and nutrition, sleep. But when you're traveling for fun, it's good to step out of the pattern and try something new as you experience. And you were there in Cabo trying to do both. So you want to be in a property where those options are available to you.
Yes, and I think that's it. There are some very successful brands who identify in their headlines that you would know the brand for in wellness, and that's not really what we strive to do. We want to be a lifestyle brand that supports and articulates a healthy lifestyle, but also when it's time to celebrate, we want to be there with you and give you the platform to choose to do whatever is right for the occasion as determined by yourself and your family and your friends, whether it's a 50th birthday party or a a celebration of a baby, or any announcement from birthdays to anniversaries, you can interpret that however you wish to at Four Seasons, and do both and jump from indulgence across to wellness and back again. That's the beauty of our philosophy.
Well, Michael, can you speak at all to the difference, if there is one, between spa and wellness? And how to wellness maybe is something more evident throughout the property. Like, what do you think about that concept?
Well, this is my interpretation. I won't speak on behalf of the brand, but spa I refer to as the mothership. And I see a circle in the middle. And then when I talk about wellness, I see these extensions, rather like a hub and spoke, coming out of the mothership of spa and extending into the programming and the activities. And one of the lines may say nutrition. It leads you into the restaurant or in-room dining with the options that we've spoken about. And another line may say fitness, and that opens up into the programming and determination of everything under the umbrella of fitness. And that includes having a purpose-based built fitness studio with excellent movement classes, space and resistance area as well, and getting the design right. But outside of that, the wellness piece is the programming that goes with it. Meditation is growing in some markets. They say is growing even quicker than the fitness. The traditional cardio boot camps is competing now with mindfulness, the need for sanctuary, and influencing meditation spots in our new resorts, moments and spaces that will stop. And that is another line that would come out of that concentric circle of spa in the middle, and then working its way out to wellness. So in short, wellness is the software for me, the programming, and spa is the center of operations. And I look at it like that, 'cause traditionally the director of spa and wellness would manage not just the programming under the wellness piece, but also the spa piece. Well-being, which is another phrase that is used, is that's the determination, that's the effect that it has on you. And as an individual, it's about my well-being, operating to wellness guidelines. And then the spa for me is the machine that has the treatment rooms, the experience, the physical structure.
Brilliant way to categorize it, honestly, because there is so much confusion between these terms and what they mean. And yet, when you're operating, as you noted, a 24/7 facility that has all of them in it, how do they all fit? But that seems like a great way to categorize it. Because today's traveler does want everything. I mean, we've learned in the last 10 years, particularly, that we have a lot of choices in everything that we do. And we want those choices extended, whether we're traveling or home or working or doing leisure time. We want to have choices. And so I think that's probably a challenge for a global brand. And yet you're meeting it head on.
Thank you. Yes, I think luxury, ultimately, the definition of luxury is choice. And people come to Four Seasons in the hope that, of course, the facilities are incredible, which they are, but also, do we move when they move? Do we understand what their journey is? And that's something that we are hyper focused on, understanding our guests and the experience they crave.
Can you speak, Michael, just anecdotally about the experience of this with ownership groups? Where do you have to convince them that these are important pieces, or today do owners understand that this is something they need to incorporate in their properties?
Four Seasons is a management company, so we don't own the physical asset, but we, like many of the luxury brands, operate long-term management agreements. So I have found in 90+% of our projects, our owners are and industry owners. So I'm not just talking about Four Seasons, are particularly knowledgeable about trends and either have a personal passion for wellness or a commercial eye on wellness as a vehicle to improve performance for their resort. So I've not run into anything in industry with other brands or my own brand, Four Seasons, where I haven't met a really switched on owner who wants to really understand the dashboard of wellness, what switches work successfully and which ones don't. And I do regard wellness as having a dashboard, and switches for certain programming work in certain locations, and they certainly don't in others. And I'm always happy to speak to successes, opportunities, and also some roads we've gone down that maybe we could improve on as well. So specifically, stakeholders in all of our operations and industry wide on board with wellness and want to do more and more.
So I know you can't speak to your brand's specific future initiative, shall we say, but do you think from your vast experience that wellness is here to stay? Or is this just a trend that was pushed along by COVID? Will it swing back? Do you think that the traveler of tomorrow in the next 3 to 5 years, 10 years is still going to value that wellness component?
I think it will follow the path of curiosity, which we move through that chapter. And then it moves into the phase of activation. And then it moves into this pillar stage, which will become a stable part of what you do. I don't know if it would get in the future called out like this independent being. I think it would just evolve to become strong component part of everything we do. We know the word wellness is used in every corner, from my 8-year-old's school who have a wellness program to CVS, a pharmacy on the corner. It is on every correspondence that you see. And I think that in itself, the impact of the word wellness will perhaps diminish, that it would integrate and find its feet, and it will be a natural part of everything. It will just be within the other principles of food and beverage or rooms. It will be woven through like a seamless red thread that will have its own personality, but will be an integral part at the core of everything we do and be expressed within a larger voice. But I don't know if it will keep having its own independent voice, like it's a separate entity, which is where it is at the moment. Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. And I'm really encouraged to hear you say that, because it shouldn't be a separate thing. It should be expected, just like F&B or a comfortable bed is, like, as part of the experience. And I hope that you're right. But I'm betting you are, because you have a good high range, a long range vision. So, Michael, in closing, my last question for you is a more personal one. Beyond spinning, what do you consider some of your wellness practices?
Well, I have been very careful not to put myself out there as anyone who preaches, but I do think that I would give myself A for effort on wellness activities. And I say that cardio piece is still critical. If I look at some of the numbers that I've been able to do on cardio and HRV, there is a space for daily cardio or every other day cardio, and I'm good at that piece. I also, even if I do a cardio class in the morning, I will relentlessly do my 10,000 steps a day. And I've been known to say to my family, I've got to go out, I've got to do another 2,500 steps at 10 at night, but I cannot sleep until I've done those steps. So that's my personal physical commitment. I eat better now than I used to, and that's been an evolution of learning. And I am a fan of intermittent fasting. I've read science on it. It doesn't work for everybody. But for me, the logic of training your body to not need food in the morning, to extend that fasting period, to build the resilience of the body works for me. And it does not necessarily work for everybody. But there's a good example. As I mentioned before, I took breakfast on vacation, and I don't do that when I'm in my normal work routine. So although I give myself an A for the fasting and the diet and the nutrition eating, I would give myself a B for sleep. I never sleep well. I don't know ever since a kid, I have not slept well. And if there's one magic wand I could have, it would be on sleep. And I think fitness, movement, nutrition, and sleep are the critical components of that ability to build up a profile of well-being for yourself. So that's where I do fail. I'll be humble enough to say when I travel, It can be quite painful with someone who doesn't sleep well at home and less well on the road. How about you, Lisa? What's your recipe?
Yes, I probably similarly, as we've aged, we know that not everything works for everyone, and you find what works for you. I feel the same about walking. That was a revelation during COVID to go out and walk, and I enjoyed it immensely, and I still do it. I mean, I'll go out and do a 6, 7 mile walk on the weekend, and it's like, I mean, it takes a long time to walk somewhere, but listen to podcasts, you look at your neighborhood, all of it, as you said, trying to eat right. I know for me, movement helps me to sleep better. So I work on that, but it's always a work in progress, right? It's paying attention to your body and being willing. I'm going to give you an A+ for being willing to step out of the routine and try something different now and then, because that's how you know if something's working, right?
I agree. And that's something that I would say change is an important part. Routine brings security and predicted results, but too much routine, I think, can bring mediocrity and performance as well. And changing it up occasionally is an important part of wellness as well.
Well, I'm so happy that the Four Seasons hotels and resorts globally are in the steady, guided hand of someone with your outlook on wellness. Michael Newcombe, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.